Hello, Heather. Forrest.
Hello, hello, good morning.
Yeah, it's 3 p.m. here. Hello, what time is it over there?
It's 10 here in my little forest.
Oh, yeah, in the forest. Heather, thank you so much for coming in for one of these duets. And a duet, what we do here is I invite different people around the world, and then I expect that you have prepared something for me, I hope. And when you have done whatever you would share with me, I hopefully get inspired to do something back to you, and then we just start this conversation. It's like one story, one maybe a song from you, whatever you do. So it's a very informal uh, conversation between two storytellers. I just want to say one thing about how we met. We met in Ljungby. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember that I came up at there's this big hotel and everybody's sleeping at the hotel. It's not really sort of a storyteller environment, but you created that. I don't know how you did that, but it was just candle lights and there was this, and you were there with the guitar and you were sort of sitting there and talking and telling stories. And I just sat down on the chair and thought, that's nice. This is like a storytelling festival should be, sharing and talking. And since I visit you, and you've been around in Denmark as well. So warm welcome to a duet, Heather.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here. It's it's really my pleasure. Turn
And
off
the
my
first thing that happened now is that I mute myself, and then it's up to you.
okay. Well, I think one thing that we have in common, regardless of where we tell stories, is that we understand that words have great power. And so that's where I'd like to start our conversation. We'll unfold in words, but I'd like to celebrate the power of words with a story about words. Words like feathers fly in the wind, reaching far and wide in the wind. Careless words tossed about cannot again be swallowed up. Tongues like swords can cut the heart. Words fly out, a rumor starts. Cruel words like feathers fly. Try and try to gather them again, but they fly away in the wind. Once, long, long ago, in Eastern Europe, they say there was a woman whose tongue was sharp and unkind. She was accused of starting a rumor. She was brought before the village rabbi protesting, saying, "Oh, what I said was in jest, just humor. My words were carried forth by others, so I am not to blame." But the victim of the rumor cried for justice, saying, "But she's ruined my own name. Why, what she said about me was not true, and now everyone else is saying it too. She's ruined the treasure of my good name." "Oh," said the woman accused, "I'll just take back my words and assume I'm excused." Well, the wise old rabbi listened to what the woman said, and he sighed as he shook his head. He thought, I don't think she understands her crime, he thought. And therefore she'll do it in time again, he thought. And being a wise man who knew that the best teacher is experience. He said to the woman accused, "No, your cruel words cannot be excused until you take my feather pillow to the market square, cut it open, and let the feathers fly through the air. When this is done, bring back the feathers, every single one." Well, the woman reluctantly agreed, thinking the rabbi had gone a bit mad indeed, but she took his feather pillow to the market square. She cut it open, and feathers flew through the air. She tried to catch, she tried to snatch, she tried to collect each one. But weary with effort, she quickly discovered the task could not be done. She returned with just a few of the feathers in hand. She said, "I couldn't collect them all. They've scattered all over the land." "I suppose," she sighed as she lowered her head, "they're like those words I can't take back from the rumor I spread. Cruel words, like feathers fly. Cruel words, reach far and wide. They leave the mouth a bitter rind. May all your words, my friends, be kind. Words can heal, words can bind. May all your words, my friends, be kind." Oh, thank you. You're muted.
No.
Ah,
I'm just sitting here saying, "Oh, thank you," and you don't hear it. Well, thank you so much, Heather.
thank you for listening.
Really?
Without the listener, there's no magic.
No, yeah, it's true. So
So
that's
I
the
close
first
it.
story in our little conversation here, and it reminded me of a story. I even think it was maybe from one of your books. I don't know about that, but it was a monk, a Zen monk, who had a temper. You know, a really like he could really get mad, really angry, and just shout out the words. He couldn't control it, and every time he did, it really it came straight into the heart of these people, and they were really sad about that he was so angry. So he went to his master and said, please, can help me. I need to to step back when I'm in this rage and maybe not say all these words. Can you help me with this?" "Yes," said the master. "Next time you come, I just want you to whenever you're angry, step back and come here instead." And then one day he was in the kitchen and there was a foolish thing done with the soup, and he had really prepared the soup for the guest, and then there was this apprentice, too much salt, too much whatever it was, and he got so angry when he tasted it. That's not the way that this soup's supposed to taste, and he didn't say a word. Instead, he ran to the master and said, "I'm so furious. You see that idiot? Why did you do it? It doesn't taste nice now." "Please calm down. Please calm down. What I can do for you is I look at the board here. You know, board? Yeah, I think it is. Hammer and nail, and you have a lot of nails and this hammer, and you just have all these nails hammered into the board. Go for it. And as he did, the monk, he could feel that his anger sort of released, and he was more quiet. So when he was finished, there was a lot of nails in the border, and he said to the master, "I think I understand now." I'm not sure you do," he said. "What you need to do now is take all the nails out of the board." So and now he could feel that instead of screaming, all his power and all his effort went into this removing of the nails, and he said to his master, "Thank you, now I really understand it." "I'm not sure you do," said the master, "because please look at what you have done to the board." And then he saw there were holes all the way down, and the master said, "That's exactly how your words are when you scream them out with all your anger. They made holes in the soul of the people that listens to them." And from that moment off, the monk started really thinking about not to hurt people with anger.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's part of the wisdom of that ancient Jewish story I told, Feathers.
Yeah.
It's that words go farther than we can imagine, and they can't be undone. You can't unhear some things.
No.
I've
Like you
spent,
said, when she swallowed the word,
right,
they're not here anymore.
right. That you can't unhear some terrible things,
No.
like you can't unsee some things. Once you've seen it, it's indelibly marked. I'm hoping that we can unhear some things from this last bit of political time in America by being soothed by new things. But it's very hard to take away negativity. Better to go forward with positivity. I was remembering a time I told that story, Feathers, in a library. It was for a family performance, and most of the people there were adults and older children, but then there's one little 6-year-old. He looked like maybe kindergarten, 5 or 6, sitting on the floor in front of his mother, listening. And as I was telling that story, I was thinking to myself, I don't think they teach about metaphor in kindergarten. I'm not sure that he understands this story. I had no idea of what was going in. I trust stories, though. I trust stories to do their work for any age, that a younger child can listen for the simplicity of the plot. An older person can delve into the deeper meanings and the layers of meanings if it's a metaphorical story. So, of course, the story is not about feathers, it's a metaphor. But I looked at the little boy and I thought, oh, well, he'll get something out of it. Maybe he'll enjoy the rhyming or the music. Something will happen. After the concert, the little boy came up to me in his little innocent face, and he said, "Miss Forrest, I just wanted to tell you that I really liked your stories, and the one I liked the best was the one about feathers." I said, "Really? And did you understand the story?" I asked him. And he said, "Oh, yes, I did. It's just like toothpaste." I said, "Toothpaste? What does this story have to do with toothpaste?" And he said, "Well, I got into trouble for this just the other day. Have you ever noticed that once you squeeze all the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back in again?" And I realized, yes, indeed, stories are magical. They go right to the heart of the matter, and that's why they live on through the centuries.
And he's right. If you squeeze it, you can't put it back. Wonderful. Lovely. Thank you for that one. Do you have another story?
I have many stories.
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, you look like one.
I do. It's my life's work. Thinking about. Sometimes I wait to see like what story is going to tap me on the shoulder, and the one that there's a couple that I keep coming back to think about, and This one is one that I've been telling myself because these are difficult times for everyone in the world right now. And how do we how do we stay whole when the world seems to be fracturing around us and there's such trouble and danger from illness, and part of me has to somehow figure out hope. And so I've been thinking about if I know stories about hope. So this one is one that I've been working on, and it's a story that takes place. It, it's actually from Afghanistan originally, but it's a Jewish story that is about hope. So here's a sketch of it. I'll tell you a tale. There was once upon a time, a long time ago, a king who worried day after day after day. He worried until his brow was indented with furrows permanently, even when he smiled. This king worried that his treasury would be empty. He worried that his armies would lose in battle. He worried that his ministers would be disloyal. That poor man had no peace. One day, as he gazed out of his palace window at the marketplace far below, he was thinking about all those common people, and he wondered, do they worry as much as I do? Oh, if I could only fly about like a bird and listen in on their conversations, maybe I could learn something. He sighed, I have no peace. I cannot find peace. And that was the moment in which he had an idea. He called for his servant and asked the servant, can you tell my royal seamstress to find the crudest cloth obtainable and make me a cloak befitting of a beggar with a good hood? And so that was done. And when the cloth, crude and rude, was laid upon the king's bed, he could see it was a wonderful coat. It would be a perfect disguise. He took off his crown, he took off his royal robes, and he dressed himself in the clothes of a beggar. He went to the fireplace and took ashes and covered his face. With the hood and the soot, he looked as close to a beggar that anyone would see on the streets of his city. In this way, he crept out of the palace. He even fooled the guards, and he went out into the market. He walked all day. He listened. He didn't learn as much as he had hoped until he passed a small, crude cottage at the edge of the market. From the cottage, he heard singing, and he peered in the window to see who could be so happy. And there he saw an old man. That man was sitting at a table. On it was only a loaf of bread. The house had little of value. There was a rickety chair, a table, not much of anything. But the man seemed so happy, and he was singing his joy. And so the king knocked on the door. And the old man, he opened the door and said, a guest. What a treasure. Come in. I'm about to have my dinner. I have not very much, but whatever I have, I'm happy to share with you. And so the king, disguised as the beggar, sat down at the table, and the man blessed the bread and gave the king half. And as they were eating, the king said, why are you so happy? Look at where you live. You have nothing. And for dinner, a loaf of bread. And the man said, "Well, this was a good day. Today I fixed shoes in the marketplace, and I earned enough money fixing shoes to buy this loaf of bread. It's been a good day." The king was dumbfounded. "That's all you earned today, don't you? Well, what about tomorrow?" And the man replied, "Well, whenever I worry, I just remind myself. I sing myself a little song. Day by day, I have hope, all will be well. And when I think that thought, my mood totally transforms. So I'm not worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll fix another pair of shoes." Well, thought the king, what a simplistic man this is. A single thought changes his world. Well, I can change his world. I wonder if he would be so hopeful if he was challenged, if he had some trouble in his life. We'll see. And the king decided that he would test this man. And so the next day, when that man went to fix shoes in the marketplace, he saw the sign. It was large and bold, and the letters were clear. It announced, "Henceforth it is illegal to fix shoes in this city. Anyone who needs shoes must buy new ones." So we have a new economic policy, thought the man. Oh well, he suddenly realized that he no longer had a job. And he despaired for a moment because that thought came back to him. Day by day, I have hope, all will be well. And the moment that thought came to him, he looked up and he noticed an old woman. She was struggling at the well. She couldn't lift the bucket of water. And so, being kind-hearted and old anyway, he thought, my hands are as strong as any, and he went to her and he helped her lift the bucket. And she thanked him with a coin. That coin was worth more than he had made fixing shoes ever. And he thought, well, I've lost one occupation to gain another. And he spent the rest of the day standing by the well, helping any person who came along who couldn't lift their bucket. And by the end of the day, he had quite a sum of money. So he went to the market and he bought himself a fine big loaf of bread, a big chunk of cheese, and some fruit. And he laid those upon his table. And that's when he heard the knock, knock, knock at the door. In came the king, dressed again as the beggar. "Welcome, welcome, come, 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 my friend. I have a fine meal. I can share it with you. I have not so much, but whatever I have is yours." And the king sat and was astonished. How did this happen? How is it that you have so much more today than you had yesterday? I saw the sign. I saw the sign in the marketplace that said it was illegal to fix shoes. So you didn't earn enough money to buy this food fixing shoes, did you? No, I didn't. I have a new occupation. I am now a professional water carrier. Well, thought the king, I'm not as clever as I thought. I will have to continue to test this man because he cannot remain hopeful when times become more difficult. I've never seen it so. And the very next day, when that man went to help people at the well, there was a sign in big bold letters. It is henceforth illegal to help anyone lift buckets of water in this city. Well, he despaired for just a moment, but that thought, day by day, I have hope, all will be well. It came to him, and that's the moment that he noticed the men marching into the forest with axes on their shoulders. They were woodcutters, and he thought, well, I may be old, but I know I'm strong. I'll see if they need some help. And he walked over to the woodcutters and requested, just a moment of your time. Could you use another pair of hands? Oh, we can always use another pair of hands. Come along, my good man. And he spent the day chopping wood, and he had enough wood by the end of the day to buy a chicken, a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, some cheese and grapes. And all these beautiful things were laid on the table when he heard the knock, knock, knock at the door. It was the king, disguised as the beggar once more. "Ah, my friends, come in, come in, come in. You look hungry. I have even better fare for us to share. Come, I have fine fare for us to share. Come in, come in, come in." And the king sat down at the table in astonishment. "I saw the sign, my good man. It's illegal to be a water carrier in the city. How is it that you managed to buy so much food?" "Well, I've lost that occupation, but found another almost immediately. You see, I have hope day by day all will be well, and when I hope like that, something always changes. And now I'm a professional woodcutter." Thought the king, and more clever than I am. The king had an idea. The next day, when the old man went into the forest to chop wood with all the other woodcutters, they were surrounded by the king's guards, who announced, "The king has requested that all woodcutters come and be guards at the palace." They had no choice. It was the king's order. And so his axe was taken away, and he was given instead a fine uniform and a scabbard with a great sword that filled it. It had a fine hilt and a good blade, and he was stationed at the gates of the palace, where he stood all day at attention, guarding the palace gate. At the end of the day, his legs were weary, his back was weary, and he was hungry. As the sun was about to set, he went to the captain of the guards and said, "Well, I believe I've done a good job today, and I would like my pay." "Like your pay?" said the captain of the guards. "It is once a month that guards at the palace are paid, not by day, by month." "By month," said the old man, but I need to eat, and I cannot wait a whole month to be paid." "Well, that is how it is. Be off and return tomorrow." And the old man walked toward his home, thinking about his hungry belly. And as he was despairing, that thought came back. "Day by day I have hope, all will be well." The moment that thought came to his mind, he noticed a shop. It was a pawn shop that would buy things and give money in exchange. He thought. He walked into the pawn shop, and the only thing of value he had besides his uniform, which he needed for tomorrow's work, was that sword. But he didn't give the whole sword. He just removed the blade. It was a valuable and sharp blade. He kept the hilt and the scabbard and traded the blade for enough money to buy food for a month. Then he went to the marketplace and he filled his arms with everything he would need. And when he arrived at home, he put the food in store, set the table with a sumptuous feast once more, and then he went to his workbench, where he did have some wood and a good whittling knife. And he carved himself a wooden sword. The sword was exactly the same shape as the blade he'd pawned, and he attached it to the hilt. And when he put it in the scabbard, that wooden sword filled it perfectly, while you couldn't even imagine that he didn't have a real blade in that scabbard. and he set it aside. And when he did, that's when he heard the knock, knock, knock at the door. And it was the king disguised as the beggar once more. He opened the door and said, "Oh, my friend, come, come, come. Oh, what a feast we will share. Come in from there." And the king came in and he saw the food. "How did you buy this food?" "How did I buy the food?" "Let me show you." And the old man brought the king to his workbench, and he pulled the wooden sword from the scabbard and said, "See, I pawned the blade for enough money to buy all this food. I've replaced it with this wooden sword. No one will know. No one will even suspect it's not real." "Uh-huh," said the king, disguised as a beggar. "And what if someone discovers this ruse? What if the king comes to know that you've pawned a royal blade?" "I have hope day by day, all will be well. Come and have some food. I'm not worried." They ate the meal, and as they were eating, the king thought to himself, "This fool of a man will not be so hopeful in the dungeon." The next day, when the old man stood at the gate in his fine uniform, with his scabbard and hilt around his waist, there was a great commotion as the captain of the guards dragged a man toward the palace gate. There was a great crowd that followed, and the man was crying out, "Please spare me, my children, they were hungry." And the captain of the guards took that man and threw him at the feet of the old man in uniform at the gate and said, "This man is a thief. He has stolen a royal melon. The king has declared him guilty and has ordered that you must cut off his head." The old man stood, realizing his predicament. He stood tall, but his heart sank. Oh, he suddenly despaired. What will I do? But that thought, "Day by day I have hope, all will be well," fluttered into his mind. And that's when the idea came to him. He stood tall. He held his hands up to the heavens and he said, "Oh, I have never killed a man in all my life. If this man is truly guilty," he said to the crowd who eagerly watched, "if this man is truly guilty, please, Most High, give me the strength to do the king's bidding, to follow his command, and give me the strength to cut off the head of this man. Oh, but dear God, if this man is innocent and his heart is good, let my sword be turned to wood." The crowd let out a cry. "He's innocent! It's a miracle! Let him go! Let him go! Let him go!" And the captain of the guards had no choice but to let that man go. Out of the crowd stepped a beggar. The beggar came close to the old man standing at the gate and said, "Do you know who I am?" And the old man said, "Yes, I recognize the furrows on your brow. You're the old beggar who comes to my house every night for dinner." "No, I am not. I'm the king. And do you know who you are? I am whoever I need to be. No, you are now the royal advisor to the king, because your hopeful view of the future will brush away my dark fears. And that is how a poor old man came to be the trusted advisor of the great Shah Abbas. Day by day I have hope all will be well.
Thank you, Heather. Ah, so full of joy, so full of optimism. It's just to sing that song, right?
I have been singing that song to myself for the last 2 weeks
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
it's been a challenging time in my country.
It
And
is.
today's the big day.
Today is a very important day, I must say. Yeah,
Yes.
and I really, really hope that you find somehow the joy and the pleasure somewhere in the future. Because right now it feels like there's a lot of despair and fear around whatever is happening.
And worry. And worry.
Worries, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I have hope day by day all will be well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And suddenly you have a wooden sword,
And
and it was
suddenly,
just what you needed.
suddenly an idea comes. I know how to fix
Yeah,
it.
it's lovely. I mean, he's forced to make this just to have some food, and then it becomes a wooden sword because he's very good at doing it, and it's there, and nobody can see it. And then when he's really is in a desperate need, oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, the talk before the story, when you said that about the disease as well, and your country and the whole world is sort of in the trembling, it's shaky. But I actually had the COVID. Me and my wife, she was in London. She brought it back here, and we had COVID for only 4 days. It wasn't really bad, but there was one very very significant thing that happened. Smell disappeared just like that, just absolutely like that, and it really both of us experienced the same thing. Coffee in the morning, it was nice, lovely, and then suddenly, at 2 or 3 hours later, what happened? It was like a switch, like, and it turned off. And that reminded me of a story I created once when I was doing these books 4 years ago or something like that. Just before I moved up here to Scotland, I created some books, and one of them is called Headless, and it's illustrated with a very wonderful guy called Emil Schaaf Christensen. But one of the stories is about a young woman who suffers a lot in these days because she was allergic to perfume and to and and all the young men of today, they all over, and they smell like a perfume factory, and she couldn't stand it. She couldn't just have it. Whenever she was out on a date, it was just going like, she was just crying and crying and crying. And these guys thought that this was a very, very, what? Oh, oh. Every time I say anything, she just started crying. Well, it was because she couldn't stand you. So she literally given up hope ever finding a young man that she could be together with. Out in the forest in Sweden, there was a troll, and this male troll had found paradise on earth. You should see the lake, and it was a perfect place. When the stones are full of these green moss, yeah, what do you call it?
Moss.
Moss, yeah. And,
Moss and
and
lichen.
you can lay your head on it. It's soft, and you can see the sun set on the lake, and it goes like this, and the forest is just really beautiful, like the forest that you have behind you. That was a perfect place, but it needed a troll woman, and he really suffered to try to find a troll woman. He was all around, and he was really the other troll, the troll males were just beating him, and he had given up hope as well. I'm never going to find anyone. Maybe I should move to another place and all that kind of thing. So we have the meeting between the two, because at one point he gave up and just thought, all right, what I'll do is to go to Sweden. Everybody knows that in Denmark there are no forests. It's absolute, nature is gone. It's only cultivated fields and stuff. So if you have to go to nature, you have to go to Sweden. Up in Småland, you find these vast, big forests. And she went there. And as she was walking, she realized one thing that she actually forgot to think about, because she was happy. She was really happy. You can smell only one thing: forest. She could feel the soft earth, the wet, dry, and the leaves and the trees, and it was just nice. But she forgot one thing, and that was actually she became hungry. And the troll had just made a fish. He had caught a fish, and she had only eaten half of it. And he was lying there, just on the side with the stone, and he was just watching the sunset when she heard the woman, and he could smell her as well. That's human, yeah. And she came closer and closer, and she saw the fish, she saw the troll, and she was going like, "Shall I do this? Shall I not?" But her hunger sort of took over, and she came and she ate the fish, and it was just delicious, and there was berries, and she had a meal for that. And now the sun has set totally, so it was kind of getting dark, and it's kind of cold as well. So she was trying to get her comfortable by the little fire there, but it was like there was this troll bag. It really looked like that was warm and cozy. So she sort of came closer and closer and closer, and I don't know if you know it, but in every bag of a troll there's a little hole for the human nose, exactly so it fits in. So there's a little hole there, you could go. And she was like expecting all kinds of bad things happening to her eyes, but what does a troll smell of? Man, definitely. Wet soil, lake, fish, all kind of very nice things that came into her nostrils, and she fell asleep with a warm body next to her. And that's where we leave them, these two, the very unlikely couple, the troll and the woman sleeping by the lake.
So the big question I have is, did you get your smell back?
Yeah, I did. I actually did, and it happened. We didn't suffer a lot from this disease. Now it's back. Every morning I enjoy it's one of the highlights of the day when I open the coffee pot. I have a little coffee like a holder there, and I just turn it. The smell of coffee, I love it. I just love it. Yeah, and I have my smell back. Yeah, and the taste and everything. Yeah, I'm quite all right. So the end of the conversation is we're reaching the end. I don't know if you have a song or anything you would like to sort of
I
say.
have a smell story,
Okay, cool.
very short one.
Yeah.
There was once a baker whose bread smelled so good. When he opened his ovens and took out his loaves, the smell would rise up like a hand. It would drift out the doorway and collect noses. So sweet was the smell from that baker's shop, it made one poor hungry man stop. He smelled, ah, he smiled, ah. Then he smelled some more. He was caught in the scent. It dragged him down the street, and he sat down on the sidewalk in front of the store. Well, the baker himself came out on the street and shouted out loud, "Stop that, you thief!" "Stop what?" said the man, who was lost in scent. Stop stealing the smell of my fresh-baked bread. You can't take a smell from me without paying a fee. Police, police, arrest this thief. Well, the police came, and they arrested that man, and they dragged him before the judge. And the judge heard the baker's story from beginning to end, and after a while agreed. This man has stolen the smell of the bread, and so he must pay a fee. A fee, cried the poor man, digging deep into his pocket. But look, I have only these few small coins, I fear. Good, said the judge, hold them up to the baker's ear. Whether justice is fair or funny, you can pay for the smell of the baker's bread with the sound of your jingling money.
What a lovely way to end the duet. Thank you so much, Heather. Lovely. I loved it. Thank you so much. And be brave.
Be brave.
Whatever happens
bold.
out there in the world, right? Be brave and be bold, and remember the joy that we just had. It was really wonderful to have you as a guest. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you for inviting me. And what is so very wonderful is that in every pile of ashes there's a phoenix, and the phoenix in this time has been the extraordinary connections between storytellers across the world. I've enjoyed conversations like this with people in places I've never visited. And I think through this strange world of technology and Zoom, we are changed forever. We are now living on a planet more than a little place. And that has become ever so much more clear. I feel like a planetary citizen. So we both live on the same globe.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.